So, good morning, Flemming.
Morning.
Good morning. Good to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Ulf.
So, this will be an interview with you about Vineyard Norden and about yourself a little bit, to get to know you and to know who you are. And it will be in English because most Swedes don't understand Danish very well. So they will have to bear with at least my bad English. So I hope
Mine as well.
I hope that will be okay. But how are you?
Anna and I, we are doing fine. We live in a small village, 50 minutes outside Copenhagen. Moved here 2.5 years ago after some circumstances privately in our family, and we enjoyed very much the life of the village. We're doing well, also in this time of Corona crisis.
You have community in the village anyway?
Yes, we decided after have lived in Copenhagen for 17 years, moving out to a village, that we would make every effort to get to know people. And instead of just accommodating, waiting a year and then reach out, so we decided from the very beginning to get to know as many people as possible in this village. So we know quite a lot of people, and we also we really enjoy that, and it's been very inspiring.
Good. So you moved there 17 years ago. No, you moved out how long ago?
A little more than 2.5 years ago.
Maybe you said that. A little bit more than 2 years. Okay. So do you have a big house?
We have a normal size new house. So yeah, we are very comfortable and enjoy it very much.
Not like a big mansion being the leader for the Vineyard Norden, right?
Not at all. It is a new house, and there's a small Ford Fiesta in the outside the house, and that's it.
Yeah. So you're married to Anna, as you said, yeah. And have you got any children?
We have 4 biological children, and so we have two boys, 2 young men. They are all over 18. We married very early, Anna and I, when we, at the age of 21, we became parents. And then we have also included another fine young man in our family who came with the refugees a couple of years ago. Sorry?
One of the refugees from Afghanistan, perhaps. No?
Yes, and Iran. He lived in. At church. He lived in the left part of Denmark, and they wrote me if we as a church could take care of him. He was about to move to Copenhagen, and I said yes, of course. And then we started thinking, we started praying about it, and talked to our children, and it ended up in asking him inviting him to become a part of our family. So he is now a part of our family. He's doing very well. His name is, as our older son, also William. So yeah, we enjoy. That's a blessing to us.
Yeah, that's nice. Good. So 4 children. 5.
4 children. We call it 5 children now. 5 grown-ups, and then we have 3 grandchildren.
I was just going to ask that. Do you have any grandchildren? 3.
Yeah, okay. 3 grandchildren. Yeah. So we are, and that's it's a tremendous joy, and we feel very blessed.
And it's a blessing with children. So how old are you? You look so young and fit, and full of energy.
Well, we are Ben and I will turn 55 this year. So so
55.
I think we can say that, you know,
That's young.
it's young. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So, and we I think, like many else, we face a new season in life, becoming 55, and that part of it we enjoy, I think.
That's nice. So I have I have 5 years to 55. I have no grandchildren, but the children still have 5 years
Yes.
to fix it. Yeah. Okay. Good. So when did you become a pastor?
I became a pastor the 1st of November 1990. So actually, by November this year, I've been a pastor for 30 years.
Yeah. So how did that happen? Did you go on to attend a seminar and then become a pastor in some church, or was it when you planted Vineyard Copenhagen, or how did it happen?
Just very shortly, I met Anne, my wife, at the gymnasium in 1984. We fell in love just after the gymnasium, and a couple of years later, she studied to become a school teacher. And since then, she's been working as a school teacher until a few years ago, when she retired. I studied. I came from a small village in the north of Denmark, and my father was a pastor in a village Baptist church where I grew up, and I really appreciated that. It was very, very inclusive in so many ways, and it ended up in some problems and some division within the church at that time, and it had a huge effect on me, and it was a bit hurtful. I stood in a choice whether is church too complicated? And the other choice was to decide if this is worth it, and I believe the church, we can do better, and I made the last choice, and I went to the Baptist Theological Seminary. I did that for only 3 years, and then we were invited to lead a small church plant, previous Baptist, non-denominational, also in the north of Jylland, and we started there in 1990, and we were there for 7 years, and enjoyed very much to see that church develop. And it was while we were in that church, I got to know the Vineyard. So maybe I should just share shortly how that happened.
Yes, please.
So we were, as I said, we had been an independent church for 5 years at the time, and then I heard of the Vineyard and that things were going on in a Vineyard church in Canada, in Toronto, and I and another leader, we went to visit that, and that was a time where people were really touched by God. So a renewal within the church was happening all over the world, and of course that made a huge impression on me, visiting that church, which was kind of leading in many ways this renewal. But the strongest impression was the way they were church. I remember that visiting that church one night. I sat waiting for the meeting to begin. I think there was 1,000 people there from nations all over the world. We're just sitting and talking. And when the worship leader started to lead worship, at that very instant, that very second, I felt God's presence very powerfully, very clearly. So it made such an impression on me. The presence of God, which is, for me, the Vineyard is about the presence of God. That's the first impression I had. And then the combination of a laid-back style and culture, liturgy in the church. So that combination of being very relaxed and very spiritual was a strong impression I brought home. And we started to seek out more inspiration from the Vineyard. And then after that, I think the same year, Anne and I, we went to Stockholm Vineyard in snow, knew no one. And when we came to Stockholm Vineyard for a weekend where they had a lot of meetings, we were so included by that church and leaders, and that just made my motivation even stronger to see if we could start up a vineyard church in Denmark. So that was the beginning of the journey.
That's very interesting. So then there were no vineyard churches in Denmark at that time?
No.
So,
in Sweden, Norway and Finland, but not in Denmark yet.
Okay, so Denmark was the last country out of the Scandinavian countries?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Oh, there is Iceland as well.
Sorry.
There is Iceland as well. Isn't that part of?
Yes, that's right. At that time there was, yeah.
Wow. And what year was this?
So this was in 95. I visited the Vineyard, and we then 2 years went by where we started relating to, got many new friends in Sweden and in Norway, and then at the same time, God was starting to challenge Anna and I to leave that church we were in.
The small Baptist or non-denominational previous Baptist, yeah.
Yes, and then to go to Copenhagen. So it was very, very powerful for me when I attended a conference, a Vineyard National Leaders Conference in UK in, I guess it was 1996, and I came a bit too early for the conference, and I visited it was actually a Baptist church in the suburbs of London. I knew a pastor there, and I heard they had an evening meeting, and I thought I can go there, take that meeting. So I went by myself. I was too late for the meeting. It was already started. People were prayed for. I arrived at church at, I think, 8:30 p.m. in the evening. And once I stepped into the door of this huge meeting where a lot of prayer were going on, a guy approached me directly, not knowing me, of course, and said, "Can I pray for you?" And I said, of course.
Yeah.
It was just a bit intimidating, but I remember he prayed for me for actually half an hour. And I can still remember him repeatedly pray the prayer, "Give him more passion for you, Jesus." And as he was doing that, for my inner eyes, I saw Jesus, the nails in Jesus' hands. And I saw that blood was dripping from his hands onto a map of Denmark. They were landing upon the 4 major cities of Denmark. And at that moment, I really felt a strong inclination and even calling to somehow facilitate that we could plant churches in the major 4 cities of Denmark. 2 days later, when I was at the Vineyard National Leaders Conference in the UK, suddenly in the morning at that meeting, my thoughts drifted off, and I saw another picture from my inner eyes. I saw that Anna and I and my family, we were following a track of Jesus' blood in a big city. And at that very moment, it only took 3 seconds, and I could easily, I guess I could have just put it aside if I wanted to. But I strongly again heard God's calling to go to Copenhagen to plant a church. And I was devastated. I didn't want to go at all. And when I came home to Anne and told her about what I've heard God talk to me about, and should we go to Copenhagen? We just, redecorated, spent 3 years, redecorated a house, and presenting that thought for Anna wasn't too popular. Her answer was, not to misunderstand, it was a no. Yeah. A couple of days later, she said, if that's how it's going to be able to do that. And 1.5 years later, we went off to Copenhagen to plant a church together with a few others, amongst them Hasse and Gitte, who Falk Jacobsen, who's now one of the pastors in Copenhagen Vineyard. Yeah. So that was the beginning of journey. In December 97, we started up Copenhagen Vineyard.
So it's 23 years ago in December. Yeah. Okay. So did you have a big party on the 20th anniversary?
We did have a celebration in the church. Yes. Yeah. So, but I think it's important to celebrate, look back, and lift up all the things we can celebrate with, and then have an eye towards the future. Yeah.
You were 3 years before us, actually, because Vineyard Umeå was planted 99, or 2 years, almost 2-3 years. Yeah. So I was going to ask you why Vineyard, but I guess you've kind of answered that question.
I think the initial impression of the vineyard, it was just a fascinating time. It was like found something very precious, new. I had this sense that how can you combine all the good things from the conservative church that I came from, and also the gifts of the Spirit. And I found that in Vineyard, and meeting the Vineyard churches in Sweden, Norway, Finland. And I must say, at the same time, I'm so thankful for the way I was included by you guys in Sweden and the Norwegians and all over the Nordic. It really meant a lot. That was at the same time kind of, this is a treasure, we'd like to open in a new way. That was, it was absolutely fantastic. And I've ever since been fascinated by our Vineyard family, also internationally. I think we have something very, very precious in the DNA and the calling we have as a Vineyard family. Yes.
Yeah, I also come from other denominations, conservative evangelicals, and also charismatic settings. But it's the same for me. I do enjoy the relaxed attitude, a bit laid back style, and but also and mostly the heart for Jesus and the longing for more of Him and cooperating with the Holy Spirit in the Vineyard natural, supernatural way. So yeah. So you studied also 3 years on a seminary to become a pastor, and so theology should be important, I guess, for you as well. that it's. So how do you think about that? Is it Vineyard theology? How would you? What is it? What's Vineyard theology?
Yeah, that's a huge question, Ulf.
Yeah, sorry.
I enjoyed the studies to some extent. It was helpful in the way that you get presented for various thinking and directions that you don't want to go to. In that sense, it was very helpful. But at the time I was studying, I did not know how that would end up at all. That's another story in my life. But I did not know how God wanted to use me actually at all. I had difficulties to comprehend that. So basically I was just studying for the very reason I studied was that if God exists, I must try to sort it out, basically. That was my motivation. I want to learn more. I want to understand more. And after those 3 years, I was invited, as I said before, to become a pastor, and that was it. I probably would have preferred, as of today, that I've spent some more years studying and preparing more for what I am involved in today. So I think, to try and answer your question, I think it you can be involved. I think the main thing is to understand God, to read, to study, and you could do it in various ways, but that you are always involved in that process. I'd always encourage leaders to do so. But being a leader of a church, there are many different approaches. We have many pastors that have a different approach and bring something very valuable to the table. So there are, and so there's a whole lot of variety in the backgrounds of leaders, and that's a richness to the Vineyard. But my recommendation is to always be engaged in studying the theology on the way.
I was on a conference. I've been to many conferences in theology all over the world, really, and or all over the Western world, anyway. And they're all fun and interesting. But then I was to a Vineyard theological conference. Was it 1.5 years ago or something? I think in the US. And what struck me was how the spiritual life and the work of the Holy Spirit was, intervened or mixed up with the theological studies in a way that I've never experienced before, and that was so encouraging for me. So just to know God and get to know Him more, that must be the main reason for studying theology. So that's so good. You passed that question that you weren't prepared for.
That's fine.
So how was it to start a church in Copenhagen, main city in Denmark?
Yeah, it was fun. It was difficult. It was a season filled with insecurity of how it would develop. I wasn't that sure it was going to work. So when I talked to other church planters and share their concerns about the future, I can say I've been there. We started out with 12, 14 people, and none of us had a long history with the Vineyard, and we didn't. We were quite. We weren't saying now here the Vineyard comes to Copenhagen, but we thought we'll start as a small group. So we had a pretty classical start up as a Vineyard church, and were just so interested to see what God wanted to do. So yeah, it was difficult. I think the first 3 years was, it's hard. It's like it's difficult. I think it's people have different, of course, different experiences on that. But I think it was a hard time, not knowing if are we going to succeed. All the sacrifices we felt we made, moving, the sacrifices of our children, the uncertainty, the pressure it puts on marriage. I think that Anna and I, we felt we were probably arguing a bit more in those 3 years than ever before, and thought, well, where did that come from? But as time went by, things were taking shape. And I remember I think the hardest time for, that's probably wrong to say. Let me just say that it's really a challenging time for being a pastor, leading a church plant, leading a church between 60 to 100. That's my personal experience, that when we were 70 people, 80 people in our church, it was the most wonderful time for the church. But I think time-wise, the hardest time for me, because you're trying to do everything. So after 3 years, I realized that I had a burnout, and suddenly realized that I was suffering from some anxiety attack at that time, and I had to take some time off and get treated for that. So that was a hard time, but all along God blessed what we were doing, and He gave me new strength, and so we moved on, and been here for a number of years now.
Yeah, so it's 17 years now. No, it's more.
22 years, I think.
2 years, yeah, of course. 22 years. So it's both blessing and also some hardship involved in planting for Copenhagen Vineyard.
Definitely is, and it's like, I think it was Nathan said that, Rich Nathan from Columbus Vineyard said that it's left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot.
Once again, sorry.
Rich Nathan from Columbus Vineyard once said that it's very much about left foot, right foot, left foot. Put one, your one feet in front of the other every day.
Yeah, just keep walking.
And I also think that many things can happen in life, and many things has happened in our life. And sometimes when I look back, I can wonder, where did we get the strength from to continue? But I never forget my friend Tom Murphy from Derbyshire in England said it's much about how much pain you can take, and if you are able to stand up again in those seasons of life. But I definitely can relate to talking with other leaders, pastors, about hardships.
And also, it's just good to hear and to know that our lives does not need to be perfect or without attacks in different ways for us to be able to serve the Lord. It happens at the same time. Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
Pleasure.
I know, Flemming, that church planting has been on your heart for a very long time, and still is, and perhaps all the way since 97, when you started the Vineyard Copenhagen. And I also know that you often talk about it, and I know that you have planted several churches from Copenhagen Vineyard and sent out different teams to different places. How many churches is it on these 22 years? How many churches have Vineyard Copenhagen planted in Denmark?
Yeah, let me, if I can be allowed to say first, Ulf, that I think it's the Vineyard in the Nordics, not just about church planting.
No.
It's about the kingdom. It's about sharing your faith. It's about multiplication of discipleship. So it's, you know, it's very important that if you are part of a church and you haven't had the opportunity to plant a church, that's not the success criteria of succeeding. What we want to do is share our faith with people in our community, and so just to underline what is our focus, and that also in our Vineyard Nordic family, we do everything we can to help each other, inspire our existing churches to become healthy, growing churches. And so much energy is put into that, as well as church planting. It's not the one or the other, it's both and. Yeah. So church planting is an expression of the multiplication of leadership. But it's church planting is at the same time very, a deep part of our Vineyard DNA. The Vineyard plants churches, and personally, when I felt that had that calling, as I was sharing in about a little time ago in this interview, I felt this very strong calling to plant churches in the major 4 cities in Denmark. Not only them, but so now it's just an absolute joy to look at it and see that now the churches have been planted in Aalborg, in Aarhus, Odense. That were the 3 other major cities. We have a church in Roskilde, Helsingør, in Rønne. Did I forget someone? Aalborg, Aarhus, Odense, Roskilde, Copenhagen, Helsingør, Rønne, and now we have a project in Hillerød as well. Mm-hmm. And we also have a focus in the Nordic, as a Nordic family, to plant more churches. Actually, I have a few numbers that I could share here with you, that since 2013, we have in our Vineyard Nordic family, we have planted in total 14 church plants. Since 14 church plants 14 has been started up in the last 7 years in the Nordic. We have also closed 5 churches and church plants, and I can also say that we hope to plant 9 more churches within the 3 next years. Mm-hmm. It's just a few numbers, and it's numbers, but that's some of the hope we have for the future. I've said that it's difficult. It sometimes can be a difficult conversation about church planting, because I've learned, speaking to other denominational leaders and friends, and also being involved in the Vineyard global family internationally, that always 2 things comes up when it comes to church planting. I would say two perspectives, and it can be obstacles. One is history. Many of the different denominations has a certain history of trying to plant and develop churches, and that can be a challenge to look at our history, because it influences the way we think. Another obstacle is maintenance. We are very focused on the existing churches, and we have to be that, but we can have a lean towards maintenance also at the same time, and we as I said before, we need both perspectives, growing existing churches and planting new churches. But that's a couple of perspectives that I've met in the thinking of leaders, also in other denominations. And the talk about, the conversation about, do we need to plant church? Do we need new churches at all? Is a conversation that we need to land in a healthy way, so we can both embrace growing existing churches, but also that we need to plant new churches.
I just find it helpful. Thank you for sharing this also. It's interesting, and I find it helpful to think that, well, as you said, church plants are an effect of healthy churches and healthy developing of leaders in those churches. But it's also, the church plants also, many studies have shown this, affects already existing churches in a healthy way. So it's like going both ways in that sense.
Certainly.
Interesting.
So it's just very, very important that you don't evaluate or value the one more than the other, because churches who multiplicates disciples and multiplicates leaders, they are the birthplace of new churches as well. And once they get started and reach new people, they inspire us back.
Exactly.
We've seen that. I could mention a number of church plants in the Nordic that has been so inspiring to us as existing churches, for which we are very grateful. So it's just very important for me that this conversation doesn't go off track, but that we embrace the whole DNA of our church family. We talk about Jesus, we experience his presence, his love, mercy, that we include the whole DNA. We pray for sick, we prophesy. So yeah, it's a kingdom life that flows from
so
God.
Much more than just church planting. Yeah. But so actually, you said 14 church plants in the last 7 years.
Yes.
For a small denomination, that's quite a lot in a way.
I think that we can say that, I think we move in the right direction with our Nordic family. I think many would say with me that we would love to see things grow more rapidly. But definitely there are a lot of things to be grateful for, and we need to celebrate our victories. And even churches, I've seen churches that, I must say that if anyone listens into that and has invested time in starting up a church and it didn't turn out as you hoped, that investment is precious. There's so many things in even making a try, give it a try, all the investment, the passion that inspires all of us as a family, the people that, all church plant has been invested in. I don't think anything comes back empty. So it's very important that, God at the end of the day looks at us and it fills us with joy and grace, and that we are very, merciful towards ourselves. At the same time, having an eager to present the kingdom in various ways.
Yeah, that's good. So good. Well, if you've been leading the Copenhagen Vineyard for 22 years, and you have also been part of the the Nordic board, leading the denomination Vineyard Nordic or Vineyard Norden before, and as it was called before, how long is that all the time as well? Have you been on the board for the Vineyard Nordic, or has that came later? Did that come later?
Honestly, it's embarrassing, but I can't remember how long I've been part of the board in the Nordic. I'm sorry, but in 2015 I was asked to if I would be in an AVC, what we call this area. I was asked to be the national director. We call it the Vineyard Norden leader. So, but we have developed the Vineyard Norden very much within the last 2 years in terms of stepping on the national pedal, and I think that development will bear fruit. Already does and will bear fruit in the future. But my heart really is to see that we can become the best version of ourselves in the Vineyard Norden family. So yeah, so I've done that at the same time with being involved and leading Copenhagen Vineyard.
So we could say that you are the Archbishop for the Vineyard Nordic.
I wouldn't. There are a lot of titles that I would very gladly decline, and that's one of them. Yeah.
Coming from a Baptist background, that just doesn't feel right, does it?
No, it's not too helpful, is it? So no, not at all. I definitely believe that leadership is so much about serving as well as direction. So it is being available to others and do everything you can to serve others to become the best version, the best Jesus version of themselves in spreading the kingdom.
That's a good saying, actually, being the best version, the best Jesus version of yourself. Yeah. Well, how many churches does the Vineyard Nordic have right now? Do you know?
I believe that we are just a little more than 30 churches, church plants and projects. Plus
30
minus.
church plants and projects and churches in Finland, Denmark, Norway, Sweden. Yeah,
so in total we have grown definitely within the last years, so a little. So
okay, good. So,
and forgive me if I have a few numbers wrong here. I haven't recently checked up on it. So,
but something like that.
Yeah.
And if you look at the vineyard right now, and where are we going? What's up next? Like in the near future and in the far future.
Yeah.
It's hard to know, of course, but just in your imagination.
As in the Vineyard Nordic family, I believe that my hope is, if we talk more strategically, basically, I hope that we will make use of the opportunity at this season with the Corona times to find new ways to share our faith. My thought is, why would you ever leave your home, go to the supermarket or in the neighborhood without considering that God has actually sent you? Why would you do that? So expect that God has sent you once you leave your home, also in times like these. I hope that we will be a church family that will reach out for lost people, for lonely people, for scared people. We have so much to offer. I hope that we will continue to grow healthy, inspirational churches that will multiply followers of Jesus and also multiply leaders. Because I hope that we can become even more intentional in doing so, and that we will also be able to send out people to plant more churches, as I said before. So that's kind of the strategic implications of growing health as a healthy church family. That we present Jesus, create followers. That's the best thing in the world, to share our faith, and that we also see people stepping up for leadership, having this call of stepping out of your own history, and climb into the history of Jesus, which means that we don't know what the day brings, because we follow him and he shows the direction. And I hope that we'll see that many more gifted people in our church family will also pay the sacrifice to follow Jesus into leadership and lead others, start up new churches. So that's what I hope to see many more churches reaching out and see many more people come to faith.
Yeah, healthy churches and new churches. That's a good one. So I'm getting so encouraged by this conversation. It's just nice to listen to you and to hear what you're saying, and it encourages me, and it stirs up Jesus, the Holy Spirit in me. It's good. Yeah. So have you ever been doing anything else? Have you been working with something else? I don't know. Maybe you're a welder or Jesus was a carpenter. Have you been doing something else?
No, I haven't. I have before studying theology, I was working in a kindergarten for some time. I'd worked with people who were mentally challenged for some years. Actually, I was also at a psychiatric hospital. So I, as an unprofessional, but I had the chance of, and I think that was God leading me to meet people in many different circumstances, and those few years investing in that was really a blessing to me. But since then I've studied, I've not really done anything else. So yeah.
Okay, but it's all the good inputs from those early years anyway. Yeah. So what do you do in your spare time? Here comes some short questions. We're closing in towards the end of this conversation, but
Yes.
I think we could go on speaking about theology and about the vineyard and about our longings for a very long time. But I've been talking for a while now, so it's trying to close it up a little bit. But I have some short ones. So one of them is, what do you do in your spare time?
Well, as many else, I enjoy time with good friends, with family, the children, the grandchildren. We love to go in the garden, greenhouse, and then we mountain bike. Often we live in a beautiful area. We are also, as a new thing, which was definitely my wife's idea, not mine, which is dancing. So it's swing dance from the 50s. So Anna has more or less started up some dancing lessons here in
the community.
Somewhat with friends here that, well, it's not my wife, but some friends here have now, on Anna's initiative, started up dancing. So we do that, and we go to the gym and so on together. So yeah, we enjoy life as much as possible.
Maybe we should have some dance lessons on the next leaders meeting.
Yes, if anyone would wish for that, I would definitely, sit and, clap and encourage them.
Okay, yeah, that's good. So what do you do to feel really relaxed?
I think I like doing something with my hands. So I've done that, a little all my life. I like that. From that, mountain biking to sit and enjoy, just relax. Could be a good movie, Anna and I, or talk about music with my sons who are involved in music. Could be many things.
What's really unexpected about you?
Unexpected? I don't know what to say. I'm afraid of heights more and more.
More and more.
Interesting. Okay. More and more, yeah. So that's one thing. I'm a terrible swimmer.
Living in Denmark with such a lot of coast, and you're a terrible swimmer.
Yeah. I learned to swim when I was 14 in a hot swimming pool in Germany.
Yeah.
With all the equipment on.
Yeah. Okay. When you were 14, yeah. Oh.
Quite embarrassing. Yeah. So now I can swim, I think, 25 meters.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Okay. Yeah. That's a bit unexpected, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we would like to know about you that we don't know that we want to know?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Maybe that's almost
I
the
think
same.
I think we live a pretty normal life, and in so many ways. So no.
You're also part of the international Vineyard leadership, right?
There is something called the VIE, Vineyard International Executives, and it's a little serving team serving the international the national directors. So it's a coordination group. So I've been invited into that, and I'm trying to do my best to serve that from the Vineyard Norden perspective.
Yeah, good. Yeah, well, this has been very interesting for me anyway. I hope it's interesting for others as well, and I think so. I'm struck by your your down-to-earth attitude and your humbleness. So I think that's fruits of the Spirit in you, in all this, that's actually coming out in those ways.
Just a privilege. Thank you very much, Ulf. Just a privilege.
Do you have a favorite Bible verse?
I have many favorites, so it's difficult to think
That's
of.
also the right answer. But if you should single out one or two.
I often think about Romans 8. I love that chapter. Of nothing can take you away from God's love. Nothing at all. I love that very dearly. I love the story in Luke 5 about the son who returns home to the father. That to me express a lot of the inclusiveness that I like to see in our Nordic Vineyard Church family. That's how God is like. He's like just a loving, merciful Father that embraces us. That's what He does every day. Standing on the heavenly balcony, looking for any of us to embrace, to reinstate in a new status in life.
Waiting for us to come back home. Yeah, that are good chapters and Bible passages. Well, Flemming, I shouldn't take so much more of your time, but thank you very much. Perhaps we could just, with me as a representative or whatever it's called, just bless you. Is that okay? Pray for you and bless you in your work. So, Heavenly Father, thank you for Flemming and for what he's doing in his work for you, and what you are doing through him. We ask you to come and bless him in this time. We ask you to come and give him strength and encouragement, and also ability to see your ways and your future through these Corona times that we're in right now. Thank you for the Vineyard that he's running, leading, and working with and for. So we just ask you to come and bless him, and above all, we ask you to come and be with him and let him get to know you even more day by day, and get close to you each time, each day, each hour, in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Ulf, and
thank you. It's been good. So thank you, Flemming, and bless you, and give my greetings to Anne as well.
Thank you very much. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.